In 1955, a schoolteacher could do everything right. Her classroom could be clean. Her students could be doing well. Parents could thank her in the hallway on the last day of school. Then the school board met in May. The renewal list was prepared, and if her name was not on it, there simply would not be another year. Her contract was 4 pages long, but what it did not say could matter just as much as what it did. These are 8 rules Ruth lived under in 1955. Stay with me, because the last rule is the one that made every other rule possible, and it never appeared on any page. Part 1. The rules she signed rule. The dress code every working day. The standard was the same. The hemline, the stockings, the hair pinned off the collar. In many schools, none of this was written down anywhere. It did not need to be. The expectations were carried by the principal, applied at the door, and understood by every woman in the building before she left home that morning. A teacher whose appearance fell outside the unwritten line was sent home to change. Sent home twice, and her contract quietly did not return in the spring. In many districts in the mid-1950s, a female teacher's professional dress meant a skirt or a dress. Slacks were not considered appropriate classroom clothing. That expectation shifted slowly and unevenly. In some communities, women teachers were still formally requesting permission to wear pantsuits well into the 1970s. The dress code was not only about clothing. It was about what a teacher was supposed to look like. Ruth had learned the standard in her first year. She dressed for it every morning before she left. The dress code was the rule everyone could see. The next one was the rule that ended a career on a specific day. Rule 7, the pregnancy rula. 1948 survey by the National Education Association found that 43% of school districts had no maternity leave policy of any kind. Most of the rest required compulsory leave, typically beginning between the 4th and 6th month of pregnancy. Virtually all of it was unpaid. The Cleveland School Board, under a rule adopted in 1952, required every pregnant teacher to take maternity leave without pay, beginning 5 months before the expected birth of her child. Return to the classroom was barred until the semester after the child reached 3 months old. When the rule was proposed, the school board's own witness testified that without it, pregnant teachers would be subjected to what he called pointing, giggling, and snide remarks by their students. That language is in the court record. The Supreme Court would not strike down rules like Cleveland's until 1974. For a teacher who became pregnant in 1955, the decision about when to leave was not hers. The board's policy was the decision. In many districts, she left on the day the policy required, not on the day she chose. The pregnancy rule ended a career on a calendar date the teacher did not pick. The next rule ended one depending on which side of a county line she lived on. Rule 6, the marriage bar. Where it still held in 1942, the National Education Association surveyed American school boards. 87% would not hire a married woman as a teacher. 70% would dismiss a single woman who married while under contract. By 1951, economist Claudia Golden documented, those numbers had collapsed sharply. Only 18% of boards still refused to hire married women. Only 10% still dismissed women who married. The bar that had shaped a generation of women's careers was largely gone by 1955. Largely gone is not gone. In rural West Virginia, county boards maintained these practices into the early 1960s. Formal federal protection against this discrimination did not arrive until the Civil Rights Act of 1964. A teacher who married in 1955 in the right district kept her job and her salary. A teacher who married the same year in the wrong district did not, which one she was dependent entirely on the county line. The marriage bar varied by geography. The next rule varied by the year, and in 1955, the political climate had a very specific name, Rule 5, the loyalty oath by 1949. More than 30 states required some form of loyalty oath from teachers and public employees. According to reporting at the time, New York passed the Feinberg Law in 1949, California passed the Levering Act in 1950. The oath required the teacher to swear she was not a member of the Communist Party or any organization that advocated the overthrow of the government. She signed it at hiring. She signed it again at renewal. Every year, in New York City through the early 1950s, more than 250 teachers were pushed out of the classroom, some for current party membership, some for past membership they had ended years before, some for invoking the Fifth Amendment before a congressional committee. The oath itself was one page. The question beneath it was longer. Who are you outside this classroom? And can we be certain we approve? She had read every word of her contract before she signed it in August. None of what follows was in it. Part 2. The rules nobody wrote down. Rule 4. The probationary yearsa. New teacher in 1955 was on probation. During that period, the school board did not need to fire her. It only needed to not invite her back. In many districts, non-renewal during probation required little more than a board decision. Often there was no public explanation, no formal hearing, and no clear process by which the teacher could challenge it. The board met in the spring. The superintendent made his recommendations, and a probationary teacher whose name did not appear on the renewal list received a letter in June, or did not receive one at all, which amounted to the same thing. She could be the strongest teacher in the building. A parent complaint about a grade. A comment made at the wrong dinner table. A hem that had been too short on a day the wrong person noticed. None of it needed to be documented. None of it needed to be proven. The contract simply did not come back. No appeal. No stated reason. Just the end of the school year and the absence of an envelope. The probationary system was the mechanism that made everything else enforceable. The next rule was what the community used while the board was not watching. Rule 3. Public reputation. The contract said nothing about where Ruth ate dinner, who drove her home, or whether she was seen at a dance on a Saturday night in the next town over. It did not need to. In many small communities in the mid-1950s, a female teacher's conduct outside the classroom was considered part of her professional record, not by written policy, but by shared understanding. Parents watched. Neighbors talked. The superintendent's wife heard things at the church social that the superintendent heard at supper. A teacher who was seen drinking was a teacher whose name came up at the wrong moment. A teacher who was seen with the wrong person on a Friday evening was a teacher whose reputation preceded her into the spring renewal meeting. Many new teachers in small towns boarded with local families, practical for the teacher, useful for the community. The family knew her hours. They knew her visitors. In a town of a few hundred people, very little about a young woman's private life stayed private for long. No one had to organize it. In a town that small, reputation traveled on its own. Public reputation was enforced by the community. The morals clause was how the school board made it official. Rule 2. The morals clause. The contract Ruth signed in August 1955 contained a clause that allowed the school board to terminate her employment for immoral conduct, unprofessional conduct, or acts involving moral turpitude. The clause did not define any of those terms. It did not need to. The board defined them as situations arose: the drinking, the dancing, the person she was seen with, the story that reached the board before she did. Any of it could qualify as unprofessional conduct if the board decided it did. The morals clause was the mechanism that turned community observation into official action. Everything the town noticed, the reputation, the appearance, the private life that was never quite private, could walk through the morals clause and become a personnel decision. She had signed the clause in the principal's office in August, with a pen she had been handed. She had not asked what immoral meant. She already understood that the definition belonged to the board, not to her. The morals clause gave the board a word. The last rule on this list is why they rarely needed to use it. Rule 1. The board didn't have to call it firing. This is the rule that made every other rule on this list possible. And it appears nowhere in any contract. A school board in 1955 did not need to accuse a probationary teacher of anything. It did not need to document a violation of the dress code, cite the morals clause, or reference the loyalty oath. It did not need to prove that her reputation had been damaged or that her conduct had been improper. It needed only to decide, in the spring, that she was not the right fit for another year. In many cases, that decision did not require the kind of evidence or public explanation a dismissal would have required. The probationary contract expired. The board chose not to renew it. The teacher was not fired. She simply was not invited back. This is what gave the dress code its weight. This is what gave the morals clause its reach. This is what made a neighbor's opinion or a parent's complaint or a single observed Friday evening relevant to a woman's career, because none of it needed to be proven. None of it needed to be written down. The board only needed to decide, quietly, in a meeting the teacher did not attend, without telling her why, that it was time for someone else. The school day ended at 4 o'clock. The expectations did not. The women who taught under these conditions were not naive about what they had signed. Most of them understood the terms clearly. They were proud of their work, committed to their students, and aware that being the teacher did not end when the school day did. What they could not do was appeal to a rule that had never been written down. Ruth's name was on the renewal list that June. It was on the list again the year after. And the year after that, she married in the summer of 1959. Her district had updated its policy 3 years earlier. She kept her job, her classroom, and her salary schedule without interruption. She taught in the same building for the next 27 years. The students from her early classes became parents, then had children of their own. A few of those children came back, through the same school doors she had walked through as a young teacher in 1955. Some of them still have her, handwriting on a report card in a box somewhere. If this brought something back, a teacher you remember, a school that felt like the center of a town, a classroom that ran on unwritten rules nobody ever had to explain. Subscribe. There's more forgotten, honest history here. The next story is ready when you are.